Welcome to the Baluch podcast, Hunter.
Thanks for having me on.
First, introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, my name's Hunter. I'm from Minnesota slash Las Vegas, and a little bit of my background is I flip vacant land. So basically, the overview is I buy vacant land, I make an improvement, and then I sell it. And I've been doing that for over 5 years now.
Well, that's really good. So, the first question I have is like, for those who may not know, can you explain what it means to flip properties and how it's different when dealing with land versus houses?
Yeah, yeah. So the flip property basically just means you're buying it. You're making some sort of improvement to it. So if you're doing it on a house, it's where you're buying a house that's either outdated or there's something wrong with it, and you're fixing it up and then you're selling it. And then because you're making those improvements, you're going to make money off of it because it's worth more. So it's the same idea with land, is I'm buying land below what it's worth. So I'm buying it below market value. And then I'm making some improvement to it, whether that's physical or within the zoning, doing research and marketing that well. Whatever it is, that improvement I'm making, doing that, and then I'm selling it for the market value of what it's worth, which is the spread between what I bought it for and what I sell it for is the profit. So yeah, that's kind of the basics of flipping.
Okay, so I'm curious as to how that is like scalable.
Yeah, yeah. So I do a little bit over 100 of those a year,
Okay.
and I like to focus on doing volume instead of just doing larger deals to because it is pretty scalable. So there's a lot of different ways you can do land. You can do a couple deals a year that are bigger numbers, but they require more capital. I like to do ones that are a little bit smaller, but they have a better percentage return. For example, like the minimum that I'll buy a property and sell it for is I have to make 3x what I buy it for. So if I'm buying it for $5,000, it would have to sell for at least $15,000. So to get a 3x return. If you're doing that with more expensive properties, like buying something for 100, it's hard to sell it for a 3x multiple. I'd sell that for 300,000 just because prices are more normalized on bigger properties compared to the smaller ones. You can usually get better margins. Um, so scaling it up and being able to repeat it is important, like you said. So how I do that is it takes a lot of having your systems in place and knowing what you're looking for. So when I am doing outreach to buy properties, um, it's basically the same process that I just repeat over and over. And it's a scalable process because I'm reaching out to the owners, I'm doing marketing towards them, and then I'm filtering it down and buying basically the best deals. And then when I'm selling it, um, again, we have the same processes that we put together to sell the properties. So when we have a new listing, like we're going to list them in the same spot, we're going to do the same thing for marketing. We're going to take the same pictures, take the same listing photos, and get everything uploaded in the same place and list them. So it's a lot of repeating the same thing, but doing it efficiently.
Okay, so now I'm more curious like about your day-to-day role, like in your work. What do you do? Like
Yeah,
what's the same?
yeah. So I don't do as much anymore because I have a team that handles a lot of it. So what I used to do is different from what I do today. Um, the only part that I like to focus on now is just the actual acquisitions. Because if I buy a piece of land cheap enough, it's hard to lose on it, right? Um, kind of as an example, I like to use as a car. If you buy like a running and driving car for 500 bucks, somebody is going to want to buy it from you just because
Yeah.
somebody's going to want a car that drives for that price. So it's the same thing with land. Like if you buy it cheap enough, then somebody will want to buy it from you, and it's hard to lose money on it. So that's what I focus on is just the buying side. And then when I sell it, basically that's something that I hand off to my team. So basically, once it's purchased, I hand it off, and then they go through, they get it listed for sale, they do the marketing, they talk to the buyers, and then we sell it. So the main things that I work on now is just the acquisitions and kind of managing the overall business of what we're doing to grow. So that's what I do now. When I first started, day to day, it was doing everything. because I didn't have a team. So it's like finding properties, talking to sellers, getting them listed, going out, taking pictures of them, talking to buyers, making some of the improvements and the whole process. But as you grow and you start making more money, you can start taking on team members and then offload some of those duties.
Okay, so like you mentioned before, your day-to-day used to be like how to find properties. I'm curious, like how do you find and evaluate which properties or pieces of land are worth flipping?
Yeah. So to find properties, I do it off market. So it's not going to be like you're not going to go on like Zillow and look up land for sale. You're going to actually go out and find people who own land and ask if they want to sell it. So the people that I'm buying from, they don't have their land listed for sale anywhere. I've just gone through and I've used programs to filter out like people that, for example, own land and but they live in a different state because they're somebody that's more likely to sell because they probably never even use the land that that they own. So I'll reach out to them and ask them if they're interested in selling and if they'd want a cash offer on the property. And land it when you talk to people they're a lot more likely to want to get an offer on it at least compared to houses and other types of real estate because with houses somebody's either living in it or they're renting it out and making money. With land it's just sitting there and they're not using it, they're paying taxes on it. So when I reach out and ask, hey, would you like an offer on it, people are a lot more inclined to at least want to get an offer on it because they're not using it. So that's the first step really is creating lists of people that own land that are likely to want to sell it and then reaching out to them and asking if they want to sell it.
Okay, so like any work that you do, there's always risk in it. What are the biggest risks in flipping at the scale that you're in, and how do you protect yourself from them?
Yeah. So the risk it's a lot less, which is nice. Just because with land, there's not as much can go wrong. Like with again, if you have a rental, a tenant could start the house on fire. They could, damage the property.
Yeah.
A lot of different things that could go wrong with it. With land, like there's not that much that can happen, right? It's just a piece of dirt and trees. So
Mm.
there's not that many things that can happen. But it really goes back to your due diligence of what you're looking at when you're buying the property. So when I buy a piece of land, you have to look at all the environmental things and also the title things that go along with that. So environmental could be, is the property a wetlands? Like, is there a swamp on the property? Is it dry, buildable land that you could actually build on? So like looking at things like that, like looking at floodplains to figure out if does this property flood? Looking at like the slope of a property, is this the side of a hill? Is it flat? Is it something that could be used? So looking at environmental things like that, that's one thing you have to do. And then the same thing is looking at title. If you don't check that, that can be an issue because you want to make sure that when you're buying the property, you're buying it free and clear. So there's nobody else that has any ownership right to that property. And I mean, that can all be alleviated just by using a title company, though. So basically, as long as you're doing your due diligence on the property, you're good on that front. The only other thing is just pricing it right. So when you're doing your comps on the property to make sure that you're buying it at a low enough price, because if you overpay, then you could lose money. So I have a pretty strict criteria of what I'm buying it for. Like I'm always trying to buy it for at most 1/3 of the market value. So if I think it's going to sell for 30 grand, the most I'm going to pay is 10,000, but I'll try to get it cheaper than that. So as long as you do all of your due diligence up front, there's not that much risk that can occur. The risk is if you mess up on your due diligence and you buy a piece of land that has something wrong with it, then that can impact your sale and either slower sale time or a lower price.
Okay, so would you be comfortable in sharing like one of your most successful flips and what it made it so profitable?
Yeah. Um, a unique one that I did was I bought it was a lake property and I'll bring this one up because I just got it back actually because one thing that I do is I sell properties on contract for deed.
Nice.
So it's seller financing or kind of like a rent to own is basically
Yes.
that's what contract for deed is. So I bought this piece of land. I bought it for it was like $8 or $9,000 or 10, something like in that range. And I sold it on a contract for deed. So what happened was the guy gave me some money down and then he started making monthly payments to me. And how it works is if I sell it for, I think I sold it for it's like 100,000. Um, and he started making payments. And once he pays off that entire $100,000, that's when I actually transfer the property over to his name. Until then, it's kind of just he's just making payments to me. So he had paid like 15,000 or so in payments, and then decided that he didn't want the property anymore. And he had already put a cabin on the property. So he built a cabin on the property, like made some improvements on it and everything, and paid me 15,000 and decided he didn't want it anymore. And with the contract for deed, what happens when you don't make your payments? I get to keep the property and I get to keep the money that he's paid me so far. So basically, this property that I paid for, I was like, we'll say 10,000. I forget exactly. Paid 10 grand for. He had paid me 15,000 already, and he put a cabin on the property. So I got that back. So basically, I got the land for free, plus 5 grand, plus a cabin on top of it. So then I went and I sold it again, because you can do that with the contract for deed if somebody defaults. Sold it again. This time I sold it for 150,000. Um, and the same thing, the people had made $30,000 in payments on that property, and then they just defaulted and gave it back to me last month. So now I've collected about 45 grand off this property. I have a house on it, and I can go and sell it again. So that's why I really like contract for deed is because you can have situations like this where you can basically just start reselling the property when people change their mind or situation changes and they don't want it anymore. Um, so yeah, that one's pretty good just because I'll be able to sell it multiple times.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're moving more onto the gloomy side. What like what was your toughest deal and like what lesson did it teach you?
Yeah, toughest overall that it's hard to say like a tough deal just because I don't remember like every property I buy either.
Mm.
Um, so some of them it's like I'll buy them and I'll never see them. Because you can do it. You can buy it where it's sight unseen. So it's kind of, I don't look at them as deals as much sometimes because some of them are all pretty similar. The properties that I flip, like
Yeah.
it'll be like a 2 acre parcel and I'll buy like 10 of them from one person. So sometimes I never actually look at them. Uh, the only like tough ones I've bought before is where I've had an environmental issue that didn't show up in the due diligence that we did up front. Um, so like one of them, it was actually the property that we looked at, it was dry. There wasn't any issues with it. Like it was a nice wooded property. Um, but the zoning for it was zoned as if it was wetlands on the property. So because of that, it was inhibiting the building on the property. So then it's not like it was harder. It's just the amount of money that we could make on it went down because what we thought it was worth, it wasn't worth. Um, so we sold it and it took a lot longer and we didn't make as much, but it wasn't really hard. I mean, that's the nice thing. Like nothing's usually hard. It's just takes a while.
Okay. So like I was thinking like for someone starting out, real estate often requires a lot of capital. How do you structure financing or partnerships to grow so quickly at the pace you did?
Yeah. The nice thing is that the target of land that I have is a really low price point. Like majority of the stuff I buy is 3 to 8 thousand dollars, and I'm selling it
Mhm.
for 15 to 50,000. Um, so it's to get your first piece of land, like it's at a low enough price point where you should be able to work on the side, do DoorDash or something, and save
Mm.
up like to get your first property. Basically, at that point, it's such a low purchase price. Um, and so that's what I did is I just saved up um, until I was able to get that first piece of land. And when I bought it, the profit that I made from that first deal is something that I went and reinvested, and that's how I bought like three properties. Like I bought one and I sold it, and then made profits. I went and I bought three, and then I sold those three, and then the profit from those I reinvested, and then it sort of snowballs up over time as you do more deals and you start making profit from them. So that's how I did it. There's easier ways to do it. So you can partner with people where you do like a joint venture option, where if you find a good piece of land that has profit available on it, um, there will be somebody that wants to partner with you and finance it with you. Because if the deal is going to make, for example, let's say it's a piece of land you can buy for $5,000 and it's worth $20,000. Somebody will give you the 5,000 to buy it as long as you have some sort of split agreement with them. Like even if you just went 50-50 with them and they're going to walk away with half of $15,000 of profit off their $5,000 investment, there will be somebody that will finance it for you just because for them it's a really good return. And for you, it's great because you don't need any money and it works for both parties in that case. So if you actually find a deal, there will be somebody that's there to partner with you on it. And you just have to network with people to find somebody like that. Go to a real estate meetup.
Okay, so now like we're moving on more to the mindset side of things. What personal traits do you think are essential for you to reach where you are right now?
Yeah. If you want to do it on your own, like I do, or like own a business or start a business, like you just have to be somewhat driven to be entrepreneurial or enjoy doing stuff on your own. You can't wait for somebody to tell you what to do, basically.
Mm.
So I mean, that's fine. Some people are better at like they like having a set task for the day and like this is the stuff that they're working on. But if you're doing something like this, you have to be a self-starter to go out and be like, all right, what do I have to do next and figure out what you're going to do and then go and solve that problem. So that's probably like the biggest factor is if you're actually going to go and be a self-starter and do it.
Okay, so if a young person wants to start in real estate, or like what you do with very little money, what's the first practical step they could take?
Yeah. First thing is just education, so you know what you're looking for. Because you don't want to, like I said, you don't want to buy the wrong piece of land because that's how you can lose out on it. Or if it's real estate in general, like you don't want to buy a deal that's bad. So the first part is just education, know what you're looking
So,
for.
so learn how to do due diligence on whatever you want to do.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And then after that, it's just like I said, it's actually going out and doing it. So like taking that initiative and going and reaching out to people and finding a deal because you're not going to find a deal if you don't talk to people. So that's where you have to actually go out and start doing your outreach.
Okay, so the last question I have now is, looking back at your journey, what advice would you give to someone in their teens or early 20s who dreams of building a business like yours?
Yeah. Um, it's kind of just to go do it, right? Because it's really the main thing. That's why that's why you have to be driven. It's
So like take initiative,
yeah, you have
whatever
to
you want
take
to do.
initiative. 'Cause yeah, every day you wait doesn't help. So, and that's the other thing too is I said like education is the first step, but I see a lot of people that get stuck there as well. Like those keep trying to learn more and then they never actually go and do it. So go do some education, like learn, read about it, watch YouTube videos, whatnot, and then actually start going and doing your outreach. Because if you don't, then you'll just be stuck in the first stage. So yeah, just go and do it.
Okay, that was all for today. Thanks for coming on the Baluch podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.